Alright, so in this video I'm going to go over everything I read in the month of September. I'll pick out my book of the month, and then I'll talk about everything I want to read in October. So the first book that I read this month was The Terminal Experiment by Robert J. Sawyer. And this is now the fourth book that I've read from Sawyer, and I'm not quite sure he's an author for me. He writes these kind of thriller style books that have science fiction elements. Most of them are taking place in kind of a modern day setting. And there's just, I don't know, I can understand why they're popular, but I think maybe he's just not quite an author for me. But I did do a full video review of that one, and I'll post a link down in the description if you want to check that out. Okay, the next book I read, I don't have a physical copy of it. It was I Remember Tallahassee by Michael G. Coney. And this is the sequel to Rax, or Hello Summer, Goodbye. And that was my book of the month last month. And so I wanted to read the sequel while everything was kind of fresh in my mind. I will post the link to the video review of that one, but be warned, I did spoil a lot of plot elements in the first book. And then I was kind of trying to encourage people to read the second book. So only read that or only watch that video if maybe you've read the first book or you don't think you want to ever read this. But I highly recommend both of the books. They were just excellent. The second book kind of solved some mysteries that were brought up in the first one. And they were just great books from Michael G. Coney, and I can't wait to read more from him. Okay, and then was Odd John by Olaf Stapleton. And I've tried to read Star Maker a few times and kind of always got hung up in the beginning of it. And I really love this one. I kind of just devoured it. I thought it was great. I'll post a link to the video review I did of that one too. That's all spoiler free. And I really can't wait to read more. I'm definitely going to read Star Maker at some point. And then I got a lot of recommendations to try his book Sirius, and so I'm on the lookout for that, and at some point I'd like to read that one as well. Then next up was The Alteration by Kingsley Amis, and this is an alternate history book, and Amis is a very great literary fiction writer, and he wrote science fiction as well. And he did some incredible world building on an alternate history where the Reformation didn't really happen, and the English monarchy had some changes to it too. So the beginning of the book sets up this really great, different version of our present day, because the book takes place in 1973. But then when you get into the plot is mostly about this 10-year-old choir boy who has this divine singing voice, and the religious leaders want to have him castrated so that he doesn't like go through puberty and have it ruin his voice. So very interesting idea for a plot. There's some weird kind of subtle and blatant humor in it. It was pretty quick, easy read. I think it's kind of like probably middle of the road overall for any kind of science fiction book for me. And maybe that could be just because I'm not like really big into alternate history, and I don't know a lot about that time period. But I could see if you're into that time period and you could see how he kind of played out this different reality. I think he did a really good job with that. Okay, the next up I read Project Pope by Clifford Simic. And I got invited on Sean D. Standfast's channel to do a discussion of this one. And it was Sean and me and Brandy from the Book Eclectic and Scott Danielson, who also has a YouTube channel called Scott Danielson. And it was in a live format. It was the first time I'd ever done like a live, and so it was a lot of fun. People could ask questions, and there was a nice little interaction going during it. The book itself, I really enjoyed the setup and a lot of the ideas and everything Clifford throws out in this one. The ending kind of left me a little underwhelmed. I had some ideas about it, and after doing the discussion and talking to the whole panel about it, I think I liked the ending a little bit more, and it kind of raised my overall kind of impression of the book up a little bit higher, which I've noticed happens a lot. You can finish a book on your own and just think about it, but if you get a chance to talk to someone else about some of these books, and you can get some different takes, I've found that you end up kind of usually enjoying it a little bit more, or looking back on it, you seem to maybe enjoy it a little bit more. Okay, the next up was book 2 in the Heechee saga. This is Beyond the Blue Event Horizon by Frederik Pohl. And I haven't done a video or anything on this one yet. I'm not sure if I want to. I might just wait until I finish the series and do like a series overview, but I have thought about doing a video where I completely talk about spoilers for the first 2 books, because I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I really liked Gateway. I like this almost equally as much. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what kind of video I want to do about that. I don't really want to do a video for every book in a series, but if anybody out there thinks that would be an interesting video and they'd want me to kind of talk about the first 2, let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably just hold off and wait until I finish the whole series, because I'm definitely going to keep reading on. And then the last couple videos I did this month, or one video, I packed both of these books into one video. This is The War of the Worlds and The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And I had previously read both of these, so I listened to them on audiobook and then just kind of briefly talked about them in a video, because they're such classic books, it's hard to really say anything that hasn't been said. But the one thing I would say, and I stated it in that video, if anyone ever asked me what, if like just one book that predates the golden age of science fiction, which one would you recommend? I would say War of the Worlds would probably be my recommendation to someone. It's just done so well. He invented so many of these tropes and did them so well. So that was that. And then I'm almost done with The Best of Raymond Z. Galoon. Now, me and Matt from Science Fiction Reads and Richard over at Vintage SF have been reading through these best of books. At the end of this week, we're going to be filming a video over on Matt's channel. I'm almost done with it. And so I'm not going to say much about that right now. You'll just have to wait and see that video. So now for my book of the month. Like I mentioned last month, I kind of was torn between 2 books. I really liked Rax from Michael G. Coney, and I really liked Gateway by Frederik Pohl, but I gave my book of the month to Rax. And this month it was kind of, I was in the same boat. The sequel to Rax, I Remember Palahaxi. I love that book. And I really like the sequel to Gateway, which is Beyond the Blue Event Horizon. But I'm going to give it to this one just to kind of share the wealth between those 2 series. I'm definitely going to be reading on, as you'll see when we get into my to read in October. Okay, so now so there's some books I definitely want to get to, and then we'll just kind of talk about some ones that I might get to. So there's a kind of a newer booktuber out there. His name's Jack, and his channel is Sci-Fi Finds. And we've been talking a little bit. He has a great channel, kind of into a lot of the same books that me and a bunch of others of us are all into. And we talked about doing a collaboration. And so we picked out To Open the Sky by Robert Silverberg. And we're both going to read this and then do a video probably on my channel towards like the second half of the month, and just look for that one. I'm really excited to talk to Jack in person and discuss some Silverberg. Then I also mentioned when I read Project Pope and did the video with Sean D. Standfast, the next selection, because Sean's doing a Simic book a month for the whole year, the next selection is Out of Their Minds, and I had such a blast talking with those guys, and they invited me to do the next read along, and this is one that I have not read from Simic, so I'm going to be reading this and then joining up on their channel, on Sean's channel again, probably towards the end of October, so look for that. If I do get time, I'm going to read the 3rd book in the Heechee saga, which is Heechee Rendezvous. So this is probably one of those ones. If I get time, I might get to that. And then these last three are books that are kind of part of this series that I'm doing, this Masterpieces of Science Fiction. I'm getting close to the midway point. Once I finish 70 books, that's halfway through the 140 book series. I'll probably do a little special video for that. But I definitely want to read Dream Snake by Vonda N. McIntyre. I kind of had this on my list for September, but I just didn't get around to it. Had too many other things going on, but this is definitely going to be read. And then The Skylark of Space by E. Doc Smith. This is one I definitely like to read this month. And then, since it's spooky season, I think I'd like to read the H.P. Lovecraft, a collection of his short stories. So on the list of the masterpieces of science fiction, it's the Dunwich Horror and Other Stories. And I had picked out a book called the Dunwich Horror, but when I looked at it, I realized that there was only like 5 stories in there instead of the dozen or however many it's supposed to be. So I'd picked this book up a while ago, The Best of H.P. Lovecraft, and this is one of those Dell best ofs. And this actually has every single story from the Dunwich Horror and Other Stories in it, minus one, but I found that on Project Gutenberg. So throughout the month, I'll probably be reading some of those short stories, mixing them in between my books, and kind of doing that for spooky season. That's kind of it. If I get all those done, or if I kind of change my mind, I have a couple other ideas, but those are kind of the main books I'm really thinking about reading in October. So let me know what you read in September. Let me know what you're thinking about reading in October. And once again, thanks for watching.